Hi, my name is Ramon Tranquilino Cabrera Calo, but most people call me Ploopy, and this is my Litstor final synthesis video. Unfortunately, the term is coming to an end, and so is our time together as a class. But, to end it all, I'd like to talk about the different things I've picked up from the class and what I've taken away from them. So, first of all, out of all of the different modules that we discuss in class, three particular ones that really struck a chord with me, that I really found memorable, were all about the creatures. So we had creatures then, creatures now, and then the creatures we created. So first of all, our very first lesson, our very first module, was about creatures then. We discussed the different creatures, mythological creatures and beings here in the Philippines from the book, the Lost Journal of, what was his name? The Lost Journal of Alejandro Pardo. And we were each assigned a creature to research about and talk about in class, and I was assigned something I had never heard of before. It's a creature in Waray folklore, which I'm not Waray, so I'd never heard of it before, called the Malaka. Now, we talked about so many different creatures I'd never heard of in class, because it really just showed me that we have so many different myths and we have so much culture and folklore here in the Philippines that we just don't really know about, because there's too many for us to share, and we're too busy focusing on like Greek gods or Egyptian gods and all these different myths from different cultures that we tend to forget our own. And my takeaway from this lesson, from this module, was we really should start, digging deeper into our own stuff, because there is a lot to dig up. Like, I don't remember who talked about the sarangay, but thank you very much, because I love using Filipino deities and creatures in MMORPGs. I love using their names for my character names. For example, in Guild Wars 2, I have a human warrior which is named after one of the Bisaya deities of war, and also the god of the rainbow, Balangay. I also have another tune that is named after one of the characters from the Bisaya creation myth, the first man, Skalak. And now that I've found out that we have our own version of a Minotaur, the Sarangay, now that I've come back to World of Warcraft, I'm thinking about rolling a Tauren named Sarangay, so that's another takeaway. Being able to use all of these myths for my own enjoyment and naming myself in video games. Second of all, second module is creatures now. So what we studied in creatures then was the depiction of each mythological being from Alejandro Pardo's book, how they really were supposed to be. And in creatures now, we talked about how we thought they would survive in the modern world. So it was really fun having to come up with our own story or narrative for how these creatures could survive in our world now. But my biggest takeaway from this was when we watched those videos about how the creatures that we had, the myths that we had here in the Philippines, they were having the little get-together, the little, it's like an A&A meeting, except instead of being alcoholics, it's more about being forgotten. That little meeting thing they had to try and stay relevant, because my takeaway from that is that we need to really talk about these myths that we have, the folklore that we have in the Philippines. We need to keep them alive, because that's a part of our culture and it shouldn't die out. When thinking about ways to keep the creature alive in the modern world, we thought about how they specifically would, survive now. But I think my takeaway from this now is we should really start thinking about how we could let these stories stay alive now. How these creatures shouldn't just die out into nothingness and be forgotten. this is our folklore, this is our culture. We should try to find a way to keep these stories alive. And that's pretty nice. I think that's my takeaway from this second one. And lastly, we talked about the creatures that we had to come up with. This is the most creative one out of the three. The second one was already a little bit more, we gotta think about how they live, but now we have to create our very own creature, and we had to make a 3D model, a real-life representation of this creature. And I'm not very good at arts and crafts, as you can see from how ugly my creature looks now. It's definitely seen better days. This was my creature, the Talonggalupad. Now, I, obviously, like I said, not good at arts and crafts, so I bought some clay, some purple clay, because purple is my favorite color, and then green goes good with purple, but I didn't know what to do. So, with my 3-year-old, my grade school age brain, I started making dicks. And then I thought, well, it's a purple phallic object. Let's make it a creature that is supposed to be an eggplant. And so we have the Talonggalupad, an eggplant that flies. Yay. My takeaway from that, well, first of all, is that I'm not good at arts and crafts. That I have the brain of a grade schooler. Second was, it was really interesting having to come up with stories for these creatures that we're making. Everybody had like their own way of making their creatures, and definitely a little bit more well thought out than mine usually, but it showed me that each of these creatures, the folklore that we have, they don't just have to exist to scare us, you know, like most of the creatures in Alejandro Pardo's Lost Journal were, you know, scary man-eating creatures. A lot of the creatures that we created, that the class created, were actually representations of some of their beliefs or parts of themselves that they wanted to share. So we could create something positive and somehow turn that into a little monster thing that represents us, and that's cute. Yeah. Cool. Now, moving on. 3 takeaways from the activities that we had, the different online and face-to-face activities. First of all, I would say the most notable sharing activity that we had would be when we shared ghost stories, because that, I'm not good with horror. That stuff kind of freaked me out, not gonna lie. Okay, so I remember somebody was telling a story about ghosts or exorcism, and then the door started making noise. No, that's not for me. I don't like that. Yeah, but it was interesting to me to see that almost every single one of us in class had some sort of experience with the supernatural, or had people around us who had experience with that. Like, I do not believe in any of this supernatural mumbo jumbo. I don't even believe in God. If God does exist, I think he's an asshole, but that's besides the point. I don't think these things exist, but I'm still scared of them. You know, like, I can punch a person, I can stab a robber, I can shoot a killer, but I can't do that to a ghost. And I don't want them to exist, but that fear sometimes drives me to think that they exist, and that kind of thought process, that kind of misunderstanding, that kind of fear that comes from nowhere, really, is so common in this country because we're so superstitious. Like, oh my gosh, Filipino parents, oh my gosh, my mom, she believes in so many superstitions, she still goes to quack doctors. It's kind of concerning. But I don't think this is a part of culture that should be completely erased. Like, it does spread a little bit of misinformation, but it also does spice up life a little bit. So, you know, keep it interesting. But yeah, my main takeaway from this is that I learned that we are extremely superstitious people, and all these stories that we're able to tell are really interesting. Yeah. Second, we had a lot of quizzes that were taken as groups. We had a lot of group activities. I think we had like 3 or 4 of them. And I am not a very group kind of guy. I like to fly solo, and you know, being put in a situation where you have to form a group, I'm really bad with that. But I did learn that teamwork make the dream work, because there were a lot of times when my group mates and I had, you know, we had this little idea over here, and then they had this little idea over here, and then you had this little idea over here, but on their own they don't really make no sense, but bada bing, bada boom, you put them together, that we have an answer to submit. Kind of. Hopefully that's how it went. It will reflect in my grades soon if I am right or wrong right now, but hopefully I am right. My takeaway is that teamwork make the dream work. Yes. Lastly, I want to talk about all of our sharing activities in general. So we did a lot of presenting in class and talking in front takes a lot of courage for people who are not used to it. Like, I personally love talking in front of people, more specifically talking in front of a camera, unscripted. Though it's not going very well right now. I'm rambling a lot, trying to come up with words to say, but anyways, we had a lot of sharing in class, and that's not what I expected from Litstor. I thought we'd be writing more, but I'm not complaining. When we have to talk in front of others and, you know, present our ideas, a lot of people did it very differently. Some people were very confident with their words. Some people picked languages that they didn't seem to be very super comfortable with and ended up stumbling. I would have done the same if I had tried to speak in Filipino, but but yeah, it was very interesting seeing everybody share and all the little quirks everyone has when they try to share. Like, for example, I like to do this and this, which, you know, it doesn't really say anything, but it's kind of distracting how much I move my arms, but yeah. Everybody's different when they talk in front, and sometimes you get nervous, but that nervousness, it don't mean much because we're just in a classroom. You know, ain't nobody gonna make fun of us for slipping up a little bit and just presenting for a class. You know, I don't think so. At least I hope none of y'all are mean for me rambling in this video right now. I mean, not like I know any of y'all. Yeah, but I liked having the opportunity to share in front. I liked the opportunity to talk, and that gave me the takeaway that I like talking in front, and that's going to help me moving forward. You know, I'm a music production major. I really need to get used to being on stage. I've performed a lot on stage. I've done a lot of speaking in front of people, and I like to say I don't really get nervous, but when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, I still do mess up a lot when I go on stage, even though I don't really mess up that much in practice, probably because of the nerves. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have a lot of, you know, chances to basically perform in front of people, like performing in front of this camera right now. Yeah, so my takeaway from all of the sharing we've done, you know, we shared our creatures, we shared the creatures we made, we shared that shoebox diorama that I I think I messed up real badly because, like I said, I'm not good with arts and crafts. But you know, being able to present that, even though I wasn't proud of it, you know, that's something I have to learn. That's something I have to take away from this class. So thank you for that. Now, how does all the lessons and takeaways from this class shape me as a person, and how does it help me moving forward in my life? To be completely honest, just to be frank, Litstor, we learned about folklore, we learned about myths, we learned about stories. I don't think it's going to help me much moving forward in my life. To be frank, I like learning about the creatures. It was fun, but that's not going to help me live my life. But, like I said earlier, having the opportunity to constantly share stuff that I made, stuff that I think share in front of people, is hopefully going to help me with my life as a musician, performing in front of people or recording myself performing for the internet, stuff like that. Hopefully that helps me become a better performer. That's one of the things I could probably take away from this class. I had a lot of opportunities to practice sharing. And as a musician, I'm going to need to do a lot of sharing in the future, just less in the form of words and more in the form of diddly-doos, And second, I learned to love our culture a little bit more. Like, a lot of these folklores, a lot of these myths that we learned are probably not exactly my culture. The Philippines is an archipelago. We have a lot of different cultures divided together. But at the end of the day, we're all Filipino. We're all Filipino, yeah. And some of this stuff, even though I didn't grow up learning them, like the sarangay, like the malakat, I've never heard of these things before, but they're part of our country. So I've gained a deeper appreciation for our myths, and I'm gonna try to look into them a little bit more, and I think that shapes me a little bit better as a Filipino, kind of. But yeah, that is my takeaway from this whole class. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, everybody, for your sharings. To conclude the video, this video is concluded. Thank you very much. Goodbye.